Before we start implementing the model for the movie details, it will be a good idea to look exactly as what we are dealing against. So this is the JSON response for the endpoint for the movie details. It's different from the last endpoint, as you can see that now we are passing in the movie ID. This is the IMDb ID. And obviously we are passing in the key. So make sure that you have your key. The result, you can see it's not an array, but it's an object. And it contains many different fields related to a particular movie identified by the IMDb ID that you're passing. Now, we will not be printing out all of these different things, obviously. We will be looking at title, probably the actors or plots, a couple of different things, maybe the poster, and the IMDb rating. If you do want to display all of these different things, then you can adjust your model so that it can, well, populate all of these different things can be decoded. But we're just going to limit ourselves to only few fields, which may include the title, the plot, IMDb rating, and the poster. All right? So now that you understand that what we will be dealing against, let's go to the next lecture and start implementing our movie detail model. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with implementing our models for the movie detail. I'm going to go ahead and add a new file, and I will call it movie detail. So movie detail. And this file will be trying to map the result that we get from over here. So we'll start with creating our structure. I will call it movie detail. This will be decodable. And it will have a couple of different properties. One of them includes the title. We will have a property called plot. You can see that we're using the Swift convention when we are declaring the name of these properties, IMDb rating, and also the poster. Now the problem with this approach, since I'm using Swift convention, is that the result that is coming in as JSON contains a capital or a uppercase letter. So I need to find a way to map the JSON result correctly to my model. We have already done that before, and we're going to do it the same way by creating an enum, a private enum called coding keys, which is going to use the coding key protocol. Over here, we can define our coding keys. So we can say title will actually be title, and the property plot will actually be mapping to a property called plot from the JSON. And for IMDb rating, so IMDb rating, which will be mapping to IMDb rating. And finally, the poster will be mapping to a poster with the uppercase. And you will have to do this. If you don't do this, then the values that you are receiving, like title and plot and all of those different things from JSON, have a different convention, uppercase letter, the first letter, and it's not really going to map it correctly to the name of the properties that you have, which are all lowercase letters or camel casing. So this is our movie model. This part is done. The next, what we want to do is we want to go to the web service and we want to implement a function that will allow us to fetch all the different movie details provided by a movie ID or IMDb ID. So let's go ahead and do that in the next lecture. Before we do that, I do want to let you know about my brand new course that just got released. It's called SwiftUI Architecture, Patterns, and Best Practices. Now, I've been working on this course for a very long time, around like 2 to 3 years, and finally it is released. You can see the pricing over here. You can use the coupon code launch day to get a 40% discount, but make sure that you realize that this is going to expire on the 9th of May 2024. Now, this course is all of my efforts in understanding how SwiftUI actually works, what patterns works and what patterns do not work, what are their limitations. And I'm going to introduce you to a different way of building applications, which you may have already seen in Apple sample codes. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about larger apps and also validation and navigation, testing, a very long or huge section on testing, and then also formatting and SwiftUI with UIKit. So a lot of things are discussed in this course, and I would really encourage you to check out this course and make use of this great offer that you have right now, which is you can get the course for 40% off. And this course is going to allow you to understand and even work with SwiftUI much better. You might be like stuck with using something that SwiftUI, you might be just forcing something in SwiftUI. So don't do that. Don't fight the framework. Check out this course and learn how to use SwiftUI the correct and the best way. Now let's go back to our video. All right, so let's go ahead and get started by implementing our get movies details by function. This function is going to be responsible for getting all the movies, the details of the movies. So we'll start with function get movie details by. You're going to pass in the IMDb ID. If you find this that repetitive, meaning that we have already done this kind of a thing, that you can always go and download the final copy of the code for this particular lecture. Every lecture has a resource associated with it, so you can simply download the resource and play around with it if you don't want to see what we are going to do right now. Completion is going to be escaping, and we are going to be returning a result. Now the result will be, in this case, a movie detail type, which is the structure that we just implemented. The next part will be the network error, and this is going to return nothing, so void. So over here, we can use the same exact approach that we were using previously for getting the URL. In this case, the URL will be a little bit different because the URL is actually based on the IMDb ID. So what we're doing over here is that we are calling constants.urls.url for movie details by IMDb ID, and we are passing in the IMDb ID. So this is going to give us a URL based on the IMDb ID. You can always download the code and check the actual implementation for URLs for movie details by IMDb ID function. The next part that we want to do is we want to perform an actual request. And that will exactly be the same as before. So URL session.shared.data task, and then we are going to be passing in a particular URL, which will be a movies URL, and a particular completion handler, which is going to return us data. It is going to return us a response and an error. And once again, we're going to perform the same thing. We're going to check if the data can be unwrapped and if the error is actually nil. Once we have done that, then it's time for us to decode the data. So JSON decoder dot decode, and we're going to be decoding movie detail.self from the data. And we're going to get access to the movie detail, try question mark, and then we can go ahead and fire completion handler, success, and passing in the movie detail. Great. Don't forget to call resume, or else it's not really going to work. And there you have it. We have created a web service function called getMovieDetails, which is going to take in the IMDb ID, and it is going to return us the movie details. Now, the next part would be, well, first of all, where do we call this function? Who is going to be responsible for calling this function? And it will be the middleware. So we'll have to go to the middleware and we have to update the middleware so that apart from calling get movies by or fetching all the movies, the middleware should also be responsible for getting the movie by the IMDb ID or getting the details of the movie by the IMDb ID. It is the responsibility of the movie's middleware to initiate the request or to utilize the web service to get the data asynchronous way and then to update some sort of the global state with the selected movie detail. So let's go ahead and see how we can accomplish that in the next few lectures. So now that we have created our web service and we have implemented the get movies by detail function, we can go ahead and create our required actions and update our middleware to perform this request. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to add an action to fetch the movie details, just like the actions that we have added for fetching all the movies and setting all the movies. Structure, fetch movie details. And since this is an action, it is going to be conforming to the action protocol. Now we are fetching a movie details using their IMDb ID. So that's one of the parameters that you're going to be passing to fetch movie details action. And the same thing we have to do to set the movie details. So I'm going to go ahead and create a structure and I will say set movie details and going to get an action, let details, which will be of type movie detail. Currently, if you see our state, movie state, you can see that we are simply holding a particular movie and we are not really holding a selected movie. So I'm going to go over here and say selected movie detail, which will be of type movie detail. Perfect. Now we can go ahead and jump onto our middleware and implement the case where we are fetching the movie details. Just as that we have an action for fetching the movies, we are going to go ahead and add an action which is going to be fetching the movie details. So fetch movie details. In this case, we are going to call the web service again, but this time we are going to use a function called getMovieDetailsById. We're going to pass in the IMDb ID, which is part of the action, so IMDb ID. And we are going to get a completion handler from the web service, which will be of type result. We can do the same thing, meaning performing the switch on the result, and we will have access to the success case and the failure case. If it is success case, we are going to get all the details. This will be an optional, so we will have to unwrap this. So details equals to details. And then we can go ahead and dispatch set movie details, passing in the details that we just received from the web service. For the second case, we will have the failure, which is going to give us the error. And using this, we can simply print out error.localize description. Let's go ahead and build this. And everything looks good. So this is the fetch movie details portion. We still have to make sure that we are updating the movies or the global state of the movies, and that will be done inside the reducer. So let's go ahead and go to the reducer, and we are going to look out for an action called set movie details. If we find that action, we can simply say selected movie detail, and we can say action.details. Perfect. This is going to make sure that our set movie details, which is in the movie state, gets updated to the details that are coming from the web service based on the IMDb ID. So now we have implemented the middleware. We have also implemented and created separate actions. The next part would be to actually call this from our view, but first we will need to make sure that we are dispatching this action, and our view has a capability from going from the list page to the details page. So let's go ahead and do that in the next lecture. In this lecture, you're going to learn that how you can display the details of a selected movie. So the first thing we need to do is we need to create a details view. Right now, we don't even have a details view. So I'm going to go into the views folder, add a new view, SwiftUI view, and I will call it Movie Details View. Great. Now, in order to display the details of the movie, most probably we will be passing in a movie object. Now, you can pass in the IMDb ID, and that should be enough, but I'm just going to go ahead and pass the complete object itself. Let movie. This means that when you are creating the movie detail view, you should be passing in the movie object. You can see over here it is complaining because we didn't really pass in anything. So I'm going to go ahead and try to pass in the movie object right here for the preview, movie, and we can provide some sort of a title. So I'm just going to go ahead and say Batman, and some sort of a poster, and some sort of a IMDb ID. So I'm going to go ahead and copy these things and paste it. This is an actual IMDb ID, and we can also get a poster URL. Now this poster URL, you can put it as a local one, but then you will have to modify your URL image so that it can read the local file also. The other thing that we want to do is we want to get access to the store, and store is inside the environment object. So let's go ahead and get the environment object, var store app state, or the store which we're creating should be app state. Great. Now, if we are using previews, we want to inject the environment right in the previews also. So we're going to do the same exact thing that we did before. We're going to go ahead and create a store object, and then we are going to inject it to the movie details view. This is going to be done at the end. We'll say dot environment object and passing in the store. Perfect. Now, what happens inside the movie details view when you actually go ahead and pass in the movie? We will go ahead and create our props. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead over here and say struct props. These are the local props that will contain the movie details. So details, which will be movie detail. And we will also have some sort of an event which is on movie details loaded, which is going to take in a string. Or you can even say load movie details on load movie details. We're going to take a string and we're going to return nothing. Now we also need to create the mapping function, which is going to map the global state to the local properties. This will be private function, map. We are going to be passing in the state, which will be the movie state. And this is going to return us the props, which is local props. We can go ahead and create an instance of props over here, passing in the state dot selected movie detail. This is the one that is coming from the server and storing it inside the global state. And for the load movie details, this closure is fired, and it is going to give us access to the IMDb ID in, and we can now fire a dispatch. Store.dispatch, which is fetch movie details and passing in the IMDb ID. Perfect. Now we need to create the user interface. Well, first of all, I'm going to go over here into the text and going to use a VStack, which is the vertical stack. Inside the vertical stack, I'm going to go ahead and call the map function, passing in the state, which is state dot or store dot state dot movies. And now we can go ahead and create some sort of a user interface. So I'm going to go ahead and put everything inside a group. And the reason I'm doing that is that because we will have a condition. If let details equals to props.details, basically we are trying to unwrap this. And if it is correct, if it is unwrapped, then we are going to return a VStack. And inside the VStack, this is completely up to you what kind of a user interface that you want. I am going to simply add a spacer, and I will add a URL image also. So URL image, passing in the URL, which will be details.poster. And just to center it, I'm just going to go ahead and add another spacer over here. Let's try to see the preview, what it actually looks like, and try to run it. See if it actually displays anything right now. Keeping in mind that the preview will be created when we are using this kind of information. All right. Now, right now, it's not really displaying anything. And the reason, obviously, is that we haven't really called onload movie details. So we need to find a good spot to call that. And one of those spots is on appear. When we call on appear, we can say props.onloadMovieDetails and passing in the movie ID, which is IMDb ID. Let's go ahead and pass that. And let's go ahead and restart our server, or restart this. Still, we don't really see anything being displayed. So now we need to see what exactly is going on. So we're going to try to figure this out a little bit later. Let's go ahead and use the else block. And in the else, we are going to return something completely different, which is going to say loading. This means that by default, it will simply say loading. When we fetch it, then we will go ahead and display it. For the H stack, everything is inside the V stack. We can go ahead and display the details, like the title, as well as the details of the plot of the movie. So let's go ahead and add those things right there. Perfect. And finally, now we can go ahead and display our rating. And this is a good thing because we can actually use our rating control that we added to the project. The rating control itself is going to simply pass in the rating as an integer, and it's going to display the rating. Perfect. And after the H stack, what we're going to do is we're just going to add a spacer so that everything is aligned nicely. We can also go ahead and for our vertical stack, we can say that the alignment will be leading, meaning starting from the left. Let's go ahead and run our preview to see what it displays. And boom, displays pretty good, the Batman movie. This obviously preview is created by all the code that we have written in the preview. We still have to make sure that we can go to the screen, the details screen, from the actual parent screen, which is the content view. If you look at the content view, and if I go ahead and even run this and type in the name of the movie, let's say Batman, it does fetch all the stuff, but I can't really click or touch or tap on any of these options to go to the next screen. So something is definitely missing. And that missing thing is the navigation link. So what we want to do is when we tap on a particular movie, we want to go to the destination. So I'm going to go over here and create a navigation link. Navigation link. And in the navigation link, I can go ahead and say the destination. The destination will be not the movie cell, but it will be a movie details view. And inside the movie detail view, we'll be passing in the movie. For the label, well, we can go ahead and return the movie cell. You can also use a trailing closure if you want to. Let's go ahead and build this. And movie cell also requires that you pass in the movie. So let's go ahead and pass in the movie. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and refresh our view and run our application now. I'm going to go ahead and say Batman. Automatically, you can see that now we have this disclosure indicator. I can click on Batman and it will show me the Batman, the image of the Batman, and the Batman Begins, which is a title, the plot, and also the rating. And you can see that now I can click on Batman versus Superman and it displays all of this stuff. So all of this is created using our Redux design pattern. And we achieve this by creating a central store, which consists of the app state and the movie state. The movie state was using the collection of movies as well as a selected individual movies. We had a bunch of actions that we used inside our reducer. And we used the middleware to perform the actual fetches. So in this section, you learn how to apply all the skills that you have developed over the last sections to create an actual application. Make sure to download the completed code associated with this lecture, which is the completed code of the app, and try it out yourself. Thank you so much, and I really hope that you have enjoyed this section.